Have you ever thought of buying a franchise or currently own one or many? If so, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Franchise Euphoria, the podcast created and hosted by franchise attorney Josh Brown for the sole purpose of helping people find success through franchising.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Franchise Euphoria, the podcast to help people find success in franchising. This is Josh Brown, and I would just like to say Happy New Year to everybody. This is the first podcast I'm doing in 2014, and I could not be more excited for what this year has to offer. I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm going to experiment with doing more than just one podcast each week. I love the medium so much, and I found such great value in doing it that in addition to doing one weekly interview, I've sort of decided I'm going to also do 2 or 3 additional recordings each week where it's just me. So you're stuck with me for a few minutes, but they're going to be a lot shorter than the interviews. But we're just going to be discussing things that pertain to you and your struggles in whether or not to get into franchising or in whether or not to expand through franchising. And just kind of want to see if this is beneficial to you. So obviously, if you enjoy this, I would love to hear from you. And you can email me at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. And I'd love to get your thoughts on whether or not you like this or enjoy this segment as much as doing the weekly interviews. Well, one of the things that people often ask is, am I making a mistake in buying this franchise? And really, when you get into business, there's really no way to avoid mistakes. But some mistakes are more costly than others. So I wanted to go over what I consider to be the 4 costly mistakes franchisors make that can easily be avoided. Because after all, if you can avoid making the mistake that others have made, you might as well do so, and it will save you a lot of time, money, and headaches. Well, if you've been searching for a perfect franchise opportunity and think that you have found it, make sure to avoid the costly mistakes that franchise buyers often make. I've sort of come up with 4 that really can be easily avoided and save you time and money. The first one is an incomplete background check. I see this all the time. Most franchise buyers do not take enough time to look into the history of a franchise before they buy it. Skimming the franchise documents and talking to the corporate owners is simply insufficient. This is the equivalent of buying a house after speaking to the seller and the seller's agent, but failing to complete a home inspection. It is just vital that you visit with other franchisee owner-operators in and around the geographic location in which your franchise will be located. If there are none, speak to other owner-operators regardless of geographic location. It's perfectly fine to call somebody up in Ohio if you're in Indiana and they're operating the same franchise. Obviously, it's better if you can find somebody closer to you, but you simply need to talk to people before you buy the franchise. Perhaps the single most important part of a background check is talking to current and prior owners of the franchise. Don't let blind faith and the excitement of the opportunity short-circuit your due diligence. The second mistake to be avoided is a poor understanding of the business model. I'm simply amazed at the number of franchise buyers that fail to understand the business model that serves as a foundation for their business. And no, having a clear understanding of the service or product you provide is not the same as understanding the business model that operates the business. To have a complete understanding of your business model, you must have an exacting knowledge of cost structure, expenses, revenues, profits, inventory, staffing, and overhead. You must have a basic understanding of how to read and interpret balance sheets and profit and loss statements. Understanding these key financial metrics is essential to understanding your business model and will dramatically improve your likelihood of success. Number 3 is lack of professional assistance. Reading about a franchise opportunity on the internet, speaking with the franchisor, or attending a discovery day is simply not the professional assistance that I'm speaking of. Buying a franchise business the right way requires that you seek accounting, insurance, banking, and legal advice. Though this may add to the cost of the purchase, it is well worth it if the counsel you seek is well versed in franchise and small business matters. And please stop going to your cousin's uncle's brother-in-law that is a family law attorney for franchise and small business advice. You simply would not go to a pediatrician for knee surgery, so why would you go to an attorney that does not practice in the area in which you need expertise? You cannot be penny wise and dollar foolish, because in the end you will end up spending more on each or going bankrupt. And there's so many people who I talk to who have had a bad experience with an attorney, and I sympathize with that. But I sort of equate it to, if you have a bad experience with a doctor, you don't stop going to see doctors. You just find a better doctor that's better to suit your needs. And I wish that more people would do that with attorneys, because what I'm seeing more and more of, especially with all the information that's available online, some of which is helpful, but a lot of which can be misleading or leaves out a lot of pertinent or relevant information, is people just try to do it themselves. And while I understand that, and I understand the cost of legal fees, there simply is no substitute when you're looking at spending a significant amount of money, and it certainly is a significant amount of money if you're looking at a good franchise, that you really should not short circuit getting the professional assistance that you need. Number 4, and the final costly mistake that can be avoided, is being undercapitalized. This is really a huge problem for franchise buyers. From an expense perspective, think of buying a franchise like going on vacation. It is going to cost you 2 to 3, oftentimes more than you think, than you originally thought. Trust me, it just will. I mean, if you don't have sufficient cash on hand, or the ability to raise capital through friends or family or a line of credit, or some other loan source that's sufficient to get your business through downturns, you simply will not make it. You need to make sure you speak with a trusted advisor experienced in small business money matters so you get off to the right start. Because the reality is the honeymoon period ends quickly. Make sure you are ready for the financial realities of the small business world. So right there, those are 4 costly mistakes that can easily be avoided. Incomplete background check. There's simply no excuse for that. You need to take the time to look into the franchise that you're going to invest in. A poor understanding of business model. While this is not the exciting part of a business, the truth of the matter is this is the necessity of being a business owner. If you don't have an understanding of the business model, you cannot be successful as a business owner. Number 3, the lack of professional assistance. You need to assemble your own professional team that you work well with to help you along the way. And number 4, please make sure that you have enough money or enough availability to get capital before you go in and buy your franchise. There will be a ramp-up period. And even if you're told otherwise, it's always best to account for a ramp-up period just in case you need it. So hopefully this was helpful to you. Like I said, I'm looking to do something like this 2-3 times a week, just kind of chime in myself, have short tips, Franchise Euphoria tips like this for you, and hopefully you find great benefit in it. And just a little prelude to next week's episode, which I'm really, really excited for. I'm going to have Dan Miller from 48 Days on the show, and he's going to touch upon how you go about determining what kind of business you want to be in. Are you the type of person that's going to be a business owner? He's an incredible business coach and has written 2 New York Times best-selling books, and I'm just thrilled to have a discussion with him. So definitely tune in next week. And until then, I wish you nothing but happy franchising.
Thanks for being with us today on the Franchise Euphoria podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to go to iTunes and provide a review. Also, please remember that although Josh Brown is a licensed and practicing attorney, nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice, because it is not. The information contained in this podcast is general and educational in nature, and none of it should be relied upon as legal advice. That being said, if you have questions for Josh and would like to contact him, please email him at josh@franchiseeuphoria.com. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you tune in to our next weekly episode.